Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the Marketing with a Book Q&A, our monthly community of authors and experts, speakers, and we're having an open forum on the subject of how to plan a book, write a book, publish a book, and promote a book. And we have two authors with us today that I'm going to do a Q&A with. So, Mary Beth, and it's help me with the pronunciation of the last name,
Mashkovas?
Moscovus. And from Durango, Colorado, and tell everybody about your book that's going to come out next week. Exciting.
Well, I guess it's live on Amazon now. Am I supposed to say that? But yeah,
Sure.
so it's live on Amazon today. But I think we're doing the full launch next week. I don't know the exact plan. Devin can yell at me if I'm saying things in the wrong order, but the book is called The Approachable Data Method. And essentially, it's a methodology that makes data easier to use and more impactful for businesses of any size. Since it's something that's a pretty big topic in the world right now, but a lot of times we end up underutilizing it or we don't feel comfortable using it because we don't feel like we're data experts. The book breaks it down into a super simple way to rinse and repeat with finding data that you can use using those insights to revolutionize your business.
So there are 8 basic story types: monster problem, underdog Cinderella story. There's a comedy solution, tragedy solution. There's a mystery. There's a quest. There's a rebirth, redemption story, and then there's an escape story. Mary Beth, when we started to plan your book, what did we decide we were telling?
I think it's a mystery, right?
It is
Am I
absolutely a
okay?
mystery.
Yeah, we talked about a few different things, but it's definitely a mystery because of the way when you're starting to dig into an issue with a business, you're very much uncovering the thing behind the thing to figure out what exactly is the data telling you.
Yeah. Essentially, if you have any topic that's technical or hard to understand, a mystery approach is a great approach. Um, Many of my books on how to attract clients, I tell through the mystery format. So now, when we were saying next week, the next week is, and Devin can check me, are we doing the 99-cent Kindle campaign next week?
Well, it actually was this week. Starts this week.
Okay. Well, tomorrow, Mary Beth, there'll be an article in my LinkedIn newsletter that goes out to 2,400 people announcing that and telling people they can buy a copy of your book for 99 cents. So, for everybody who has a book coming out, we go to the Indie Books family of about 200, encouraging them to buy the book for 99 cents and leave a verified purchase review on Amazon. So, one of the ways we're judged, and yes, the world is judgy, as an author, one of the way we're judged is how many reviews on Amazon do you have? I was working with one author, a psychologist, on his upcoming book, and I said, "Well, what are the top books that you'll be competing with?" "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Well, let's go find out." And we went to Amazon and we found out that the number one book in his category had 25,000 verified purchase reviews.
Wow.
He goes, "I've never heard of this book." I said, "I think by next week you need to know what this book's about and report back to me." Well, the book was about a rare childhood disease, and Julia Roberts was interested in it and executive produced a movie with her and Owen Wilson about the little boy who had the disease. And I said, "Okay, well, we can't count on Julia Roberts producing a movie on your book. So let's look at number 2 and number 3 on the list." So you want to do that. Um, Mary Beth, what was your reason for writing the book? What was the goal? Not to help the reader, but I mean the for you to advance your career.
Yeah, I mean, as an industry expert, which after how long I've been in the industry, I've been positioning myself that way for a while. I did run my own consulting firm for about 4 years. I just started as a director of data services for another company. It was a good strategic decision on being like, well, I'm the one who wrote the book on it. So it's, it's a big thing for positioning yourself as like a thought leader and industry expert beyond doing videos and webinars and blog articles and all sorts of things like that, which I had done before. So it was really like the next step in that. I had a lot of ideas as well that would lend well to the book format versus kind of the piecemeal of blogs and such.
But you were interesting to me because this wasn't your first book.
Yes.
Tell us about your other writing.
Yeah, so I'm actually a science fiction and fantasy author as well. So I already have one book, which I can find and put in the link if or in the chat if anyone's interested, that had come out in 2020. So yeah, I had self-published that one. I still had worked with an editor similar to you, and did the whole like kind of semi-professional shebang there. It wasn't just like I just published it without doing those pieces. But yeah, so I have written that. I actually have another fantasy novel coming out this year as well. I don't have a date yet though, because that's quite an undertaking when they get really long.
Do you use your I was going to say real name. Do you use your name on the fiction?
I do it in like I do MB Mishkovas, kind of like J.R.R. Tolkien or whatever. So I
Yes,
just
yes.
abbreviate my name, but it's still the same name.
Or
So
J.K. Rowling. Yeah.
yes.
She sold more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so he's no slouch as far as book sales. Um, so that's it. Yeah, and that was interesting because you definitely understood storytelling. And a lot of people, I think, scratch their heads when we're writing nonfiction and business advice, and I'm talking to them about storytelling. That as a journalist, we know we're always telling a story um, and framing it so people can understand. And so you're adept at that. And yeah, I don't know. For uh, my fiction, I'm I'm thinking of a pen name. I think I'm going to go with a pen name to keep the the two worlds apart. Okay. Well, thanks being with us today. Let's bring on Dr. John O'Brien.
Are you sure you want to bring him on?
Uh, no, I'm not, but
He's here anyway.
oh, he's here. We got to deal with
Listen,
him.
yeah. Listen, first of all, congratulations, Mary Beth, on your book coming out. Good for you. I remember seeing you a few months ago when you were in process, so good for you for getting it out there.
Did you meet at the forum in La Jolla?
No, I think we met at in one of these networking
Oh,
events that you have.
yeah, yeah. So what I just referenced, people, if they don't know, twice a year we do events at the University of California, San Diego, where we bring authors and experts together. And we have the Rainmaker Forum, which is in February, and then Health Authority Forum, which is in September. And John's going to be a featured speaker and television show guest. Um, in September at that. And if anybody's interested in that, we can get them information or see Devin. Okay, well, John, tell us about the journey because I didn't help you write your book. You came with a manuscript. How did you
It's
do that?
it's true. Well, I had been percolating on this topic for several years, actually, and had written a previous book with a colleague that was more specifically for clinicians, but this book was going to be more for a general audience. And
And what
um,
is this book and what's it about? I
oh,
should
my
have asked
book?
that first. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
everybody.
okay.
Gosh forbid
It's
you
like,
should
whose book?
promote your book, John.
So the title of my book is Rudeness Rehab: Reclaiming Civility in the Workplace and Your Home Space. And it's an exploration of the pandemic of rudeness and incivility that has taken over our society. The first part talks about why change, like what's the motivation for changing, and it ties rudeness to higher stress levels and health risks. And then parts 2 and 3 look at internal and then external coping skills that people can use to manage episodes of rudeness from others or their own urges to be rude.
So, John, the year 2025, is rudeness in America better, the same, or worse than 2024?
I think it's only increasing, unfortunately. I mean, if I, think, um, I think there's more and more of a need for my book. I wish there wasn't, but uh, I think that kind of in all people are experiencing such intense stress and frustration and all the uncertainty and instability that a lot of negative stress-related behaviors are leaking out in workplaces, in homes, in stores. I mean, kind of throughout society.
John, I've been very impressed. You do the work. We There was an event that some of our faculty put on in April in Las Vegas called Game Changers with professional speakers, and you went out there and you networked and you studied and made contacts. And then there's other times where we've put you on stage, and um, you're a great speaker. Uh, do you agree we all can get better?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I had been doing, I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years in the University Main system, but doing professional speaking and honing a message, it takes a lot of work, and I'm still a work in progress.
Is a TED Talk in your future?
I hope so. Yes, I actually did apply for one, but that's I obviously didn't get it. But it is a journey to try to get on the TED stage. But that's one goal I
Yeah.
have.
Some people have to apply 50, 60 times.
Yes.
Now, a couple of our authors did it within 3 tries. So I guess you got two more to go to see how you're doing on that.
Is this like the old game show, Name That Tune? Like, I could get on that TED stage in 2 tries. Okay, I'll give it a
Well,
shot.
it's not that because it's there's the luck.
It is,
If
yes.
that committee is looking for something like
Right.
your subject might be great, but you know, and for those people, you can't just do your book title. John would come the closest to where I think he could do something close, but they don't really want to promote your book. They want to
Right.
promote a big idea. So your big idea relates. And here's my zen of this all. Um, you became an author to have impact and influence. And the book is the starting line, not the finish line. The book gets you speaking engagements. The book is the number one marketing tool. Speaking is the number one strategy for impacting and influencing people. Also, we say more impact, more influence, more income.
Mhm.
It's speaking. And that can be speaking on a podcast, speaking on a stage. Um, while we're so interested in a TED Talk is if you say, here's my book and here's a link to my TED Talk, a meeting planner has all they need right there to book you.
Mhm.
They don't need to read anything or see it because you got through two hurdles and and especially if it's not a crappy self-published book. And if you think I'm taking a shot at people who do crappy self-published books, you would be right. The world doesn't need another one of those.
Mhm.
Somebody showed me, oh, John, talking about rudeness. John's working on me. But
You're doing great,
this
Henry. You're
this
doing great.
guy, no, he says, "Oh, you're a book publisher. Here's my book." And it was really a crappy self-published book that didn't have an ISBN on the back. I mean, you just could tell it wasn't good. Um, and he said, "What do you think?" What I was thinking was, it looks like an Armani suit with a knee patch, but I didn't say that. That would, well, I wish you the best with this, you know. Now, one person showed me his book, and on the front it said a forward, Forward, a forward by, Mary Smith. Okay, the word is Foreword. It's a forward uh, word. That's what that's about. So he used the word for like forward Christian soldiers, um, you know, advance. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "What's the purpose for the book?" And he says, "Well, more credibility, more impact, more influence." I said, you spelled the word forward wrong on the cover of your book. Everybody's going to see that and they're going to think about you made a mistake on the cover of your book. And he said, what should I do? And I said, Fahrenheit 451. If you read Ray Bradbury, that's the temperature books burn at. I had him burn 5,000 books. I said, I don't even want you giving them away to like the thrift stores or something because I don't want anybody to see your name and that mistake there. The person I was really angry at on his behalf was his proofreader who missed that. Somebody applied for a job with us to be a proofreader, and they said, "Let me see your book," and they showed me the book, and they had that same mistake on the cover. And I said, "Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, well, we'll let you know." It's like, no, we're not going to hire you. So anyway, there's a famous quote about architecture that God is in the details. God is also in the details of book proofing. And get whatever you do, hire us or don't hire us. But if you cobble together a team to put your book out, make sure you get proofreaders and copy editors on it. I always joke when I publish a book, I hope yours is the first perfect book ever published. The odds are against it. But even with a team like ours, even the team that works for me on my own book, gremlins sneak through. The good thing about print on demand is you can make a list of them, take the book down for a day in a few months and put it back up. Okay, John, thanks for playing our game today, John. I have some lovely parting gifts for you. I'd like you to open it up, Dev, to the full Brady Bunch kind of look there. And does anybody? It's an old reference. Hollywood Squares. I'd also would have accepted that. Opening up to, does anybody have a question for our authors or for Devin or for me? This is the audience participation part of the show. Let me teach a valuable lesson. When you're on a Q&A and they ask for other questions, this is your opportunity to ask a question, identify who you are, and promote what you're doing. Oh, Robert Begley. Robert, do you want you're a Toastmaster. Robert, I'll just let you take it away. Robert, who are you and what's your question?
Robert, author of upcoming book, Voices of Reason. And what John had just spoke, I apologize for joining late, so I missed the beginning part. But Frank King, who you had recently on your program, he's the TED Talk guy. He's the guy that he pretty much guarantees for a price to get somebody to do a TED Talk. So I didn't know if that was known, but I wanted to share that.
John does know Frank. We introduced him. And then the other thing about that, and I'm not trying to hurt Frank's business, but Frank is very generous. He's done several videos for us. He's provided other material. I've written columns about him. He's given his basic do-it-yourself advice on how to get a TED Talk. If you follow Frank's advice, you will get a TED Talk. Now, for all of us, a little coaching never hurts. So if you could get some coaching on it, some feedback. In addition to Frank, we have other people who are experts on TED Talks that we can help you with. It's always good to run by your topics by somebody and see how it resounds. And then Frank's basic advice on the TED Talk is most of their applications are very similar. So you do one, save it, and then adapt it for each one that you can apply to. And Frank's advice also is apply to many. It's a numbers game. Apply to many and be willing to get on an airplane and go somewhere to speak. Now, if you're like Robert, remind me, where do you live? Was it Texas or where do you live, Robert?
Happiest place in the world, Orlando, Florida.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Tijuana. Happiest
Yes,
place
from
in the world,
Simpsons, that is.
Orlando. Okay, so you're an East Coast, but if you look down the East Coast corridor, where you're a short flight away from, probably 60% of the population of the US is within a 2-hour plane flight of Florida. So, you don't, so if you don't want to apply for California and Washington and Oregon, we won't be hurt. Or Arizona. I look to that world. Um, Eric Billman has his hand up. Eric, please tell us who you are and what you're interested in writing, and then what your question is.
Hi, I'm Eric Billman, author of the international bestseller, The Art and Science of Donor Bliss. Um, Also principal consultant for Donor Bliss Consulting. I am working on my second book with Henry's advice, and I've been gathering information through interviews. But just some validation, perhaps, and encouragement about how long is this process, because my life is out of control and I'm trying to steer through to get this done, but what's reasonable? And Mary Beth and Robert, you're both experienced authors.
Yeah, why don't we start with John and then Mary Beth saying how long it took them to write their book?
Eric, my experience was I had an equally out of control life. So I had this idea floating around for a few years. And what really landed the plane for me, so to speak, was I hired an editor. I started to talk about this when Henry and I first started talking. I hired an editor um, to help me focus and write the book. And he said, we can write it in 3 months. And I said, I didn't say you're crazy because that would be judgmental, but I said, that's not happening. I have this out of control life and too much. And so we wrote it in 3 months. So, I mean, it sounds like you're similar in that you have this concept already in terms of writing. I think just, I would advise you to think about, certainly Henry and other people, but hire someone to work with that sets deadlines, and that can help you make progress.
Mary Beth? Thanks, John.
I mean, I would concur about that. I've written this book, and then the book that's coming out, the fantasy one, is actually 160,000 words. So it's really, really big book. And working with someone who can set you deadlines really helps, but it depends on your personality. But for me, that helps because then I go, okay, I can back myself into that. And then, I mean, I think with a business book, it's, a fraction of that length typically. At least working with Henry, I did come with like 15,000 words or something. And I was like, I already have this. And he was like, oh. But we ended up going, that'll be my second book, potentially. But I mean, I think you already probably have the idea and a lot of the content. So starting with a structure and then fleshing it out from there is a good way to break it down into bite-sized pieces. And if you've been consulting for a while and have like blog articles and things like that, you probably already almost have a book written. So I think looking at it that way makes it a lot more attainable. And then, I mean, if you can just set aside time blocking as well is one of my favorite tasks I mean, I do this for my day job as well, but like I know I need to do something. I have a guess of how long it'll take, and I just put those hour blocks on, and I don't let meetings get gobbled up into that. And that also really helps uh, break it down into those pieces. But once you see that you have the outline and maybe you have a blog article here that can be repurposed and then something else here, like you're already going to have a word count that's getting close to what it needs to be. And then a good editor can help you resmith that into a structure that works well for a business book.
Thank you.
Um,
Also, I
I,
don't like
I
writing.
say, yeah, I say 90 uh, days to 6 months, and that it's easier to write it in 90 days than it is 6 months. And my record is 6 days. And I call that the misery approach. I locked myself away for 6 days and didn't do a lot of hygiene. Um, a lot of delivery food, um, and cranked it out. So that is possible. The reason faster is easier is because of your momentum. Um, I'd like to hear from Janan, and then she has a question too. I'd just like to hear your advice on that, how fast to write it, Janan. Janan is our deputy editor for our imprint Health Authority Books, and she's the founder of Global Bookshelves. Janan?
Yes. Yeah, for the writing, I think, like you said, setting up sprints and having a focus time, definitely starting with the end in mind of the table, a strong table of contents, knowing where the pieces are going to go. Another quick, easy idea I like to recommend people is have post-its and either use voice notes or take time to put the stories that are going to be a part of your book, you know for sure, and write them, at least the story stem of the story, on a different post-it, and then later either get a blank wall or a blank dining table and plop those post-it notes in the order that kind of flows after you've taken time to actually write those stories out. That helps in the process.
Janan, we use the post-it approach in writing screenplays. And I have a
Yes,
big board, and then they go up in
that's
and you
right.
move them for the order, like, oh, that scene actually belongs up here and
Yeah,
not down there, or things like that. So very similar thought. Well,
yeah.
what was the question you had?
Yeah, so my question was that I think both of the covers I saw on these amazing books are stunning, and curious for both of these authors, what were each of your roles? Mary Beth, I noticed the lime that is part of your brand, and John, I noticed the facial hair that's recognizable and similar. So tell us about that experience.
And if you had a book handy to hold up so people could see, that would be great. Anybody?
Oh,
Anybody?
do you have one of mine? Because I don't know where the proof version is right now. Um, but I can start while John's looking for his book.
Devin's
Yeah,
gonna look for you, Mary Beth.
cool. Thank you. So yes, the consulting firm I had created was called Insight Lime Analytics. And we had that lime, that like really like bright lime color as our primary color. So since that book was like written kind of during the core time of that consulting firm, that was the main inspiration. It was always a really playful brand. I wanted to be playful about it because a lot of people get intimidated by data or don't think it's particularly exciting. And so that was like the premise of the brand itself as well. If you look at a lot of our competitors, they always use that like standard blue, and they
Yeah.
have like in, they just have really like they have a certain brand that isn't quite as playful. So that's kind of how we got there. And we did actually change the title of the book partway through the process. And I think this was something that really fit better. And then we're still playful with it, like the squeeze value out of data for like the lime thing. So wanted to have one last go of playing with that brand. Now we have the approachable data method, which still has some nods to that, but it's a little different.
Oh, Devin's holding it up.
So it's the proof copy. So it's got the band on it, but you can see there's the lime and the little drop.
Data, good to the last drop.
And
John,
John.
what about, John's Rudeness Rehab. So it's John with two puppets, kind of the angel and the devil puppet. But they're both John, by the way. Um, John, your thoughts?
Well, I was working with Melissa in the design department about the cover, and she had presented a number of covers to me, and one of which was this general character, just a man with the angel and the devil, and that just fit perfectly with the theme of the book about that we all have choices about which we're going to feed, and so that's. But I thought, wonder if we could personalize this. So I actually got the name of the artist who's in Spain and had him individualize that to me, because the other piece or the other point I make in the book is that I'm not like better than everybody else. I struggle with this all the time, and I have these choices that I'm making, and so that was the major kind of focus of the book. And I wanted the colors of the book to kind of match some of the colors of my business that I've chosen for Activate Success.
When we publish a book and we have the manuscript that's ready to go, we say it's ready to be published. Two things happen in the first 30 days. One is we have three editors scour over the manuscript, make suggestions on how the book can be better, and go to the author, and the author has a chance to accept, reject these. Simultaneously, Devin is leading a process to design a cover. She has a creative brief that she gives the author. They answer questions about what they like, dislike, And then there's a series of thumbnail sketches that are delivered to see direction, and then we keep refining it because when the manuscript is edited and ready to go to the art department, we need the cover to go at the same time so that the art director can design the book to have the theme of the cover throughout the book. So there's thematic, graphic, and chromatic continuity through it's fancy words just to say that it's carrying through what's there. So the little we had a lot of fun with the devil and the angel puppet throughout the book too. And so those are all the things that happen in motion
Can I just
on
add?
getting a book.
Can I add something?
Please.
So it was actually interesting because with John's book, it took a little while to get here. And in the first kind of round that we did, the feeling was that there was too much emphasis on the rudeness. And we wanted to show that it was like you can change and that it's coming past this. So the first rounds that we got from the designer were, I would say maybe, a lot of reds and oranges and very like harsh and focusing on angry kind of imagery. And that's where we kind of had to take a step back and say, like, well, what is really the end goal we want from this? And that's where we kind of came up with this idea of showing the change from good or bad. So as John would talk about it, that was the imagery that just always kept coming up in my mind. So like the good, evil, like good, bad decision, good decision. So we gave that brief on the second round to the designer, and then she was able to find this great artist who then we were able to work with again to customize it and create additional images for the interior. So it is a process, but really thinking about, what is the like takeaway you want the reader to have kind of also helps focus the design a lot of the times.
That cover sums up the whole book. I'll get to you in just a second, Lisa. And I'm trying to really edit this story. John, I'll tell you the whole one in private sometimes, but it was over the weekend and somebody was admitting to me that, and I'd seen it in action, that sometimes they had anger issues. And I said, every time you're angry, it's over some injustice. I said, I bet there's a story from your childhood that would explain that. And his wife told a story about when he was bullied as a child, and his mother told him to fight back against bullies. And it was like in that moment, he was like, "Oh, oh." I was like, "Oh, well, now you know where it comes from. Now you got a choice when it happens." I had another author who was not a psychologist, but he was a business coach, and he was talking about the amygdala, the almond-shaped gland in your brain that controls fight, flight, freeze, all that. And we called his book The Threat Switch because he deals with like blue collar companies, and somebody will be in a meeting at the company and say, I think we should pave the parking lot. And some other person will say, well, that's the dumbest idea. We got other priorities than paving the parking lot. He says, like, and then I would watch that guy there'd be a fight about how important it is, or the guy would say, well, I have another meeting I've got to go to and leave, or he would just shut down. And he says, but he was educating them, oh, when they flip your switch, you've got a choice where you can flip it back. Oh, why do you think it's a dumb idea to pave the parking lot? Help me understand. It's like, oh yeah. Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. I saw Lisa Apolinsky's hand.
Yes, hello, Lisa Apolinsky. I am a 5-time author, also international author, now coming out in Taiwanese. And my question is around when you are promoting your book, and I am a huge believer of promoting early and often. how do you deal with the working title? Like I saw Mary Beth had to change her working title because someone else had it. So is there a best practice of how you address it when you're being interviewed on a podcast or a live interview or something like that?
Lisa, who's the question addressed to?
Oh, well, I was just throwing it out into the ether. I wasn't, yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess maybe you. I'm not
I guess we'll
sure.
start with me, but then go around the horn, maybe.
Yeah.
So a working title means we don't know if that's going to be the title. The first book I ghost wrote, the title was Forget Everything You Know About Hiring. And during one of the interviews, toward the end of the book writing, a CEO said, "Oh, I know exactly what your book's about. It's like someone sits in the chair across from me, and I think you're not the person I hired." And the light bulbs went over our head, changed the title, and 10,000 copies in print almost overnight with that title. Titles are important. So the working title, though, you have to have one in the writing process because it is like when you're sailing at night to Hawaii. You need a star to guide you by. I imagine you're going by the Southern Cross or something if you're going to Hawaii. I don't know a lot about celestial navigation. It's just a metaphor. But you need the star to, I need a tall ship and a star to guide her by. I also know poetry. So that's what the working title's about. The working subtitle for me should be about who is the book for and what is the outcome. What is the outcome that they want? Marketing with a book, the science of attracting high-paying clients for consultants and coaches. Okay, we know the book's for consultants and coaches, and we know what they'll get is high-paying clients if they have the book. So that wasn't the original subtitle. I say dare to be clear rather than clever for your subtitle. I also say it for the main title. My story about Penny Reed and her book, she wanted a provocative title, and I said, what do you know how to do? She said, I know how to grow a dental business. And I said, I got a title for your book, Growing Your Dental Business. It's what you want, it's what you know how to do, it's what they want. So dare to be clear on that. So anyone else, John, how did you proceed to come up with your title? And then
Well,
Mary Beth.
obviously the topic was civility. So at first I was thinking, oh, the title's going to have civility in it. But then in talking to people, so many people would say to me, I'd say, I'm writing a book on incivility, and they would say, instability? I'm like, no, 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 incivility. And I was constantly correcting people, and so many people didn't know what that meant. So I thought, okay, I was advised to change the wording. And the other piece of wisdom that Henry gave me was you want to think about your book, the main title potentially being a website that people can go to. And so that also helped me in formulating the main title so that I then grabbed rudenessrehab.com as the website. And so, and for the next book, I'm thinking I will try to have a clearer sense about what's like the website. I feel like I'm more empowered now in understanding how to approach the title selection. But you can just say, as Henry said, it's a working title.
Oh, by the way, Stephen Covey, the president of Covey Leadership, Stephen Covey's leadership, was a client of mine for a while. And he told me the inside story about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, multi-million-dollar seller. They kept going through working titles, and that was the subtitle. And it was the deadline. They had to print the book. And they said, screw it, just use the subtitle. Because usually I think John was referring to the trifecta title, 3 or 4 words. We can get the .com URL for $20. It works as a workshop title, and it also has bolt-on potential. So John can do rudeness rehab for attorneys, rudeness rehab for CPAs, rudeness rehab for manufacturers. So that's the bolt-on one. Mark LeBlanc's Growing Your Business, he's got 80,000 copies in print of that book. He's Mark at growingyourbusiness.com. And he's done 1,000 presentations called Growing Your Business or Growing Your Business with a Bolt-On. growing your business for dentists, growing your business for financial planners, growing your business for accountants. Yeah. So with that, Mary Beth, what was just a little insight into your working title versus final title?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I handled it was I just never mentioned a title at all when I was promoting it. So I would be on a podcast and I was like, oh, I have an upcoming book, and I would talk about the content more specifically. And it wasn't super intentional that I was doing that. It just, for whatever reason, that was what felt more right to me because I guess I knew that sometimes the titles change. And then we were actually partway through the process. So we had gotten rounds of drafts for like the cover and everything with the original title. And it was like nothing was really sticking. And I wasn't like, this is the thing. And we was struggling with it a bit. And then I just happened to Google it and realized that there's a book with like the exact same title. It's a slightly different topic, but still about data. And we were like, oops, like, and that's where, when we were thinking about the methodology, I can't remember if we had already named the methodology or not, but um, that's where then like making it more approachable was something that kept coming up. So that's how we dealt with it. So I didn't really name anything, and then I bought the domain once I was ready, and we had done that next step. So
Cool. Well, we have time. If there is one more question, we have time for one more question. Yes,
Hi
Pam.
there. Hi,
Hi.
this is Pam Roberts. I work with author Tom Samodi. His book, Dynamic Execution for Executives, was just released this last month. I have a question since you had brought it up about Amazon reviews, because of course we all want them. And I'm not quite sure what that looks like, especially considering, Amazon released their community guidelines and they're sort of like, don't have family review, don't have friends review. If you're connected on any social media, if they've already liked your author page, we won't, I mean, in theory, AI or their algorithm is going to disqualify those type of reviews. And so I'm a little bit, I mean, of course you want organic reviews, that's great, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm just curious of if you have insight into that. And then also, is what they tell us about their algorithms disqualifying all those types of reviews actually happening? Are you seeing that with your authors as their books come out?
I think Devin Amazon DeVries should handle this.
Yeah, so it is a challenge for sure for all authors, especially with the crackdowns they've kind of done to avoid the fake purchased reviews. So I would say it's very it's not consistent. So yes, they say that, but we have seen reviews go through that, these obviously are people they know. We have them on Henry's books. They're obviously people we know. But on the other hand, we've had some authors who they know people submitted the reviews and they're not showing up. So the hardest part about it is that there's very little communication. So even as a reviewer writing the review, they often don't tell you if your review was rejected. Like you just kind of have to go and look. So we did have one author that told us he submitted a review for, a fellow author's book, went and saw it wasn't there, waited a few days and submitted it again, and then it showed up. So I would say it is not a perfect algorithm in any way. And really their biggest concern is that they're real accounts. So if you do have an active Amazon account, you're a current customer, all of that, for those people, much higher percentage should get through. So I would say, still ask as many people as possible, to leave you an honest review. And then, you just have to see what makes it through. But I don't think it's I wouldn't say don't ask them at all, because we need as many reviews as you can get.
Two horrible metaphors come to mind. I'll use neither one, but they involved many things storming something and only a few getting through. So that's what's happening here. You need as many going after it because it's a fraction that we'll get through. Well, with
Thank you.
that,
It's
I
really
want to thank
helpful.
everybody for attending, and we do these every month. Our next one in May is going to be on the 6th of May. And do we know our guest yet, Devin?
We do. So Jamie Shibley, who's the author of Relationship First Strategic Engagement, and Russell Hackman, who wrote Wall Street is Not Your Friend, are our guest authors.
If any of you right now, we don't have to remind you this year that Wall Street's not your friend if you have any money into it, because the Dow continues to go down, down, down. Russell's book, very interesting insights into, he likens it to a casino. They're like, casinos aren't your friends, banks aren't your friends, Wall Street's not your friend, traditional publishers are not your friends. That's why we formed an indie publishing company for fellow authors. So encourage on that. And then Jamie's book, I really have liked Jamie's growth, and um, I've made this the year of relationships for us. And it's not about strangers on the internet. It's about these strong bonds you're building with key groups and key people that is going to promote you. And that's what these community Q&As are. Also, we encourage every author to R&D, rob and duplicate what we're doing here. How could you do a monthly Q&A call with a community and build a community where they can come and get help and assistance and build relationships? Because the one thing I want, Frank King's name has come up, so I want to encourage something. When we put out the call to buy a book for 99 cents, Frank buys every time. And some of it is the law of reciprocation. And, call it karma, call it kismet, call it what you will. But Frank knows the more he gives and puts out there, it's not a quid pro quo, but people help him. Let's all adopt that. Think if your book came out and you had 12 verified purchase reviews right off the bat. And what did it cost each one of us? 99 cents. Though I say all of us, we buy the books too. But I always say we need verified purchase reviews, John, from someone whose last name is not DeVries or O'Brien. That's the algorithm's actually much more sophisticated, as we know now, than that. But somebody on the back of your book, yeah, they're not going to accept a purchase review from one of these people. It's just that's the game. And it's because those bad, rude people who game the system so that they get good reviews for their microwave ovens are hurting us authors. But oh well, we soldier on. Thanks everybody for attending, and hope to see you next month. Bye bye.